It's never easy to talk about this, but if you've recently lost a spouse, or even if it's been a few years, you know the emotional toll is only part of the journey. What often surprises people is how complicated things can suddenly become. With money, bills come in the same, income doesn't, and the person you used to turn to for decisions. Well, now those choices are all yours. I was chatting with a lovely woman at our community center, Eleanor, 74, full of heart. She lost her husband last spring. They'd been married over 40 years. I thought the hard part would be the grief. She told me, but no one warned me about the finances. Within weeks, she found out her Social Security check would be smaller than she expected. Her husband's life insurance needed paperwork she couldn't find, and her bank account still had his name on it. She was overwhelmed, and she's not alone, in fact. Did you know that nearly 70% of widowed seniors say they regret not reviewing their finances sooner after their spouse passed? It's a quiet crisis one people don't like to talk about until it's too late. And that's why we're having this conversation today, because while the loss may feel like a storm, the choices you make in the weeks and months that follow can either lead to calm waters or more chaos, and I truly believe that with just a little bit of guidance, you can avoid the most common financial pitfalls and give yourself peace of mind in a time when you need it most. So in this video, we're going to walk through 5 of the most frequent and costly financial mistakes widowed seniors make. And more importantly, how to avoid them with grace, one step at a time. These aren't complicated legal moves or overwhelming tasks. They're simple, real-life adjustments that can protect your finances and help you feel a little more secure. Even if everything else feels uncertain, we'll talk about things like survivor benefits from Social Security, updating wills and paperwork, hidden tax changes, and why getting a second opinion on your finances isn't just smart, it's empowering. And if you're watching this not because you've lost someone, but because you care about someone who has, thank you. Your support matters more than you know. Now, before we dive in, if you find value in honest, compassionate advice like this, I'd be truly grateful if you'd give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to our vibrant elders community, and share your own experience or question in the comments. You never know who you might help. All right, let's get started with something many people don't even realize they need to do right away: making sure your Social Security benefits are properly updated. Number 1. Not updating Social Security or survivor benefits. One of the very first things that needs your attention after the loss of a spouse is your Social Security benefits. It's a detail that's often delayed, either because of grief or simply not knowing, and that delay can quietly cost you. Let me tell you about Mary. She lost her husband, Carl, after 38 years of marriage. In the fog of everything, funeral planning, calls to family, and just trying to sleep at night, she waited nearly 6 months before notifying Social Security. She thought the funeral home had taken care of it, but no one had, and as a result, she missed out on over $2,000 in survivor benefits that she couldn't get back the moment a spouse passes. The rules around Social Security change. Depending on your age, your work history, and your spouse's benefits, you may be entitled to switch from your current benefit to what's called a survivor benefit. This is especially important if your spouse's check was larger than yours, because you might be able to receive up to 100% of what they were getting instead of just your own lower amount. But here's the catch: you have to report the death to Social Security directly. The funeral home might notify them, but it's not guaranteed, and unless you speak with a representative and file the necessary forms, those adjustments don't happen automatically. The best course of action: call the Social Security Administration directly at 1-800-772-1213 as soon as possible. They'll let you know what documentation you need, usually a death certificate, and they'll walk you through your options. You may also want to schedule an in-person appointment at your local SSA office for more personalized help. And don't worry if you don't have all the answers yet. You're allowed to ask questions, take notes, and request follow-up info. What matters is starting the conversation early, before months pass and those missed benefits are lost for good. Just like Mary, most folks don't realize how time-sensitive this is, but by taking care of it early, you can make sure your income continues smoothly and possibly even increases. It's not just about getting what you're owed, it's about making sure your financial footing stays strong even after life has shaken it. Number 2, ignoring estate or will updates after a spouse passes. There's a moment when the world feels frozen but life and paperwork keeps moving. One of the most overlooked steps during this time is updating your estate documents. I know, it's not exactly something you want to think about, but skipping it can create real problems down the road, especially when emotions are already high. Take Susan's story. She and her husband Bill had a simple will they'd written together back in the 90s, nothing fancy. After Bill passed, Susan assumed everything was still in place until a disagreement came up with one of Bill's relatives over an old bank account that still had both their names. Because the paperwork hadn't been updated, the money was temporarily frozen. It took months and a lot of unnecessary heartache to resolve. The truth is, anytime your family changes, your legal and financial paperwork should too. That means revisiting your will, your power of attorney, any living wills or health directives, and especially your beneficiary designations. Most people think the will handles everything, but in reality, beneficiary forms on things like life insurance or retirement accounts actually override what's in the will. That's why I always tell folks, think of this as resetting the map. Your financial life has changed and your paperwork needs to reflect that, thankfully. This doesn't have to be expensive or overwhelming. Many local legal aid organizations offer free or low-cost help for seniors. Some online services walk you through the process in plain English, and if you prefer, a local elder law attorney can review everything with you in just a few hours. Start with your will. Does it still reflect your wishes? Then look at your financial accounts. Who's listed as the beneficiary? Is it still your spouse, or do you want to update that to a child or another relative? And don't forget to review your power of attorney, who will speak for you if you can't. Doing this now protects not just your finances, but your peace of mind. It's one of those quiet gifts you give to your future self and to the family that may one day need to help carry out your wishes. Number 3, overlooking tax filing changes. When Jane lost her husband in late 2022, she wasn't thinking about taxes. Who would be? But come spring, she sat down with her accountant and got a surprise because her filing status had changed. Her refund was smaller than expected, and even worse, she had missed out on deductions she didn't even know she could take. It turns out that first year after losing a spouse carries some very specific tax rules, and if you don't know about them, you can end up paying more than you need to or missing out on money you could have kept. Here's how it works in the year your spouse passes away. You're still allowed to file your taxes jointly just like when they were alive. That's called the qualifying widow status. It often gives you a bigger standard deduction and can help lower your overall tax bill. But here's the catch, that only applies for the first year. After that, you move into a different tax bracket, typically as single, and your tax liability can go up. Even if your income went down, that's why it's so important to look at your new tax picture early. If you're used to having taxes withheld a certain way or making quarterly payments based on your old income, those numbers might need to change. And don't forget medical expenses, funeral costs, and some charitable donations may also be deductible, but only if you keep good records and file the right way. I always recommend talking to someone, a tax advisor, an accountant, or even a free senior tax prep program like a AARP's Tax Aid. They'll help you figure out your new filing status, review your withholdings, and make sure you're not leaving money on the table. And if you're not sure where to start, the IRS website has a widowed taxpayer section that breaks down the basics. Jane, thankfully, filed jointly that year and saved over $1,500. But she said if her accountant hadn't asked, she never would have known. So if you've recently lost a spouse, take the time now early in the year to check your tax situation. It's not just about numbers, it's about protecting your income during a time when every dollar matters more than ever. Number 4, not reassessing budget and insurance needs. After Ron's wife passed, the house felt quieter, but not just emotionally, financially, things started to feel off. He was still paying for 2 cell phone lines, a joint dental plan, and even their old streaming subscriptions. For a few months, he didn't notice, but slowly it added up. It wasn't until his daughter sat down with him to review his monthly budget that he realized he was spending like there were still two people in the house, and that's more common than you'd think. When we lose a spouse, our expenses don't just cut in half. Some bills shrink, sure, but others stay the same or even grow. Medicare premiums, utilities, property taxes, those don't go away. And if you were depending on two Social Security checks or a shared pension, your income probably changed too. That's why January or February is the perfect time to reassess. Not just emotionally, but financially. It's not about cutting back on everything. It's about making sure your money is still working for your new reality. Let's talk insurance. If you had joint life insurance or a policy tied to your spouse's income, it's time to check if it still fits your needs. Some folks discover they're paying hundreds a year for coverage they don't need anymore. Others might actually need more insurance like long-term care or home coverage now that they're living alone. And then there's the budget itself. It's okay if it feels overwhelming. You can start small, pull out a few recent statements and ask, am I still using this? Do I need this plan? Ron ended up canceling a second car insurance policy and switched his internet plan to a senior rate saving. Nearly $900 a year with just 2 phone calls. Also, don't forget those small recurring charges. Subscriptions, memberships, auto renewals, those can keep running quietly unless you catch them. Even things like groceries and dining out may shift. You might find yourself buying more takeout or wasting food because packages are too big for one. That's why a quick financial spring cleaning after widowhood can be so powerful. It gives you back control. It helps your budget reflect the life you're living now, not the one you were living before. And that's not just smart, it's healing. Number 5, delaying financial advice or planning after her husband passed. Linda told herself she'd wait a few months just to settle in emotionally before meeting with a financial advisor. But those months turned into a year. She was paying bills, managing her checking account, and she figured that was enough. Until tax season rolled around and she realized she'd missed a valuable filing status that could have saved her nearly $1,800. That's when it hit her. Sometimes waiting feels easier, but it can cost us more than we expect. And that's the 5th mistake so many widowed seniors unknowingly make: putting off financial advice. I get it, you're grieving, you're adjusting. It's hard to imagine sitting down with someone and laying out all the numbers. But here's the truth, reaching out for guidance early is one of the kindest things you can do for yourself, in fact. Studies show that widowed individuals who consult with a financial planner or elder law attorney within 6 months of loss are more likely to protect their assets and maintain a stable income over the next decade. That's not about wealth, it's about wisdom, about knowing which benefits still apply to you, how to shift your investment risk, how to structure withdrawals, and even how to plan your taxes better for the years ahead. You don't need to find a Wall Street expert. Many communities have nonprofits or local advisors who work specifically with seniors, some even on a sliding scale. Your area agency on aging or a local church might help you connect with someone you trust. And even one session can open your eyes to savings or protections you didn't know you had. Let's not forget estate planning. Either a quick check-in with an elder law attorney could help you update your will, retitle property, or safeguard your home from long-term care expenses down the road. Linda eventually made that call. She found a senior advisor through her library's resource board and met for a free consultation. It wasn't scary, it was empowering, she said. I walked in feeling nervous and walked out with a folder full of answers. That meeting gave her peace, clarity, and most importantly, confidence. If you're widowed and feeling unsure, this is your gentle nudge. You don't have to do it all alone sometimes. One good conversation is all it takes to start feeling steady again. Losing a spouse changes everything: the rhythm of your days, the decisions you once made together, and yes, even the numbers on your financial statements. But as we've walked through these 5 common mistakes today, I hope you've seen something important. You are not powerless. In fact, just by being here, just by listening and learning, you've already taken a step towards staying in control of your future. You now know that updating your Social Security and survivor benefits isn't just paperwork, it's money on the table that you've earned and deserve. That revisiting your will and legal documents is about protecting your voice and your wishes. Not just preparing for the worst, you understand that taxes don't have to be a mystery and that the IRS actually offers you grace if you know how to claim it. But your budget, your insurance, and your daily costs all need a fresh look when the household shifts from 2 to 1. And that seeking advice isn't admitting defeat, it's how you keep standing strong. Each of these steps may seem small on its own, but together they build something powerful: peace of mind, stability, confidence, and in a time when so much can feel uncertain, that's something no price tag can measure. If you're sitting there thinking, where do I even begin? Start with just one thing. Maybe that's calling Social Security tomorrow. Maybe it's setting a date to meet with a trusted advisor. Maybe it's simply opening that drawer and pulling out the will you haven't looked at in years. Whatever your first step is, take it with grace, because forward is forward no matter how slowly you go. And if this video helped bring a little clarity, or even just made you feel understood, I'd be so grateful if you'd give it a thumbs up, subscribe to Vibrant Elders, and share your own story in the comments below. What was the hardest financial lesson you learned after loss? What helped you the most? Your words could be just the thing someone else needs to hear today. Remember, you've weathered storms before. You've built a life full of love, of memories, of resilience. This is just one more chapter and you still get to write it. So take a deep breath, hold your head high, and take the next step. You're not alone. And you've got what it takes to walk this path with strength, with wisdom, and yes, with grace.